Hello, good morning, and welcome to Unacademy IAS, a one stop destination for all the English medium civil services aspirants. This is Shyam Kaggod here, taking up the Hindu news analysis dated 7th December 2025. Now, before I start the session, please do let me know that I'm audible and visible for all of you. Those who are present in the session, please give the confirmation. Done. Thanks a lot. Let's start. So, for today's session, I've taken a total of 9 articles, all of them from Hindu newspaper Delhi edition. We'll have a detailed discussion so that you'll be able to answer the questions in prelims as well as mains examination. If you're liking this initiative, do not forget to hit the like button. If you're yet to join our YouTube channel, kindly do it right now. Before I start with the first article, I have a very important announcement to make. 10th December, we have planned something very exciting for you. All you need to do, irrespective of whether you are a civil services aspirant or not, all you need to do is go to the description part of this particular video. There will be a link provided. Click on the link. You'll be taken to one more video. In this video, please hit the button notify me. Do not forget 10th December 7 p.m. Let's start. The first article, Rupee at 90, a market meltdown or a calculated policy pivot of RBI. In the last couple of days, there has been a lot of discussion associated with the rupee depreciation. And for the newcomers, what's a basic idea for depreciation? Whenever value of one currency will fall down against another currency because of the demand and supply in the market. I repeat, depreciation basically means the price or the value of one currency will fall down against another currency because of demand and supply in the market. For example, imagine there is suddenly too much of supply of rupees in the forex market. Supply of rupee increases and the demand for the dollar increases. So, whenever anything is supplied in a higher quantity, higher volume, automatically value must go down. In this case, the rupee will start depreciating against the dollar. So, in the last 1 week, there is a lot of discussion associated with rupee depreciation. On the 3rd of December, the value of rupee hit all-time low of 90 rupees per dollar. Remember this, a psychological number. Psychological in the sense, any depreciation will have certain good outcomes as well as negative aspects associated with that. But the number 90, it's a psychological number. There is a concern in the market. Will rupee stop depreciating at this particular level, or the depreciation will continue even after 90? Will it become 91, 92, 93? And it will hamper certain economic activities in India. So there is a concern in the domestic market associated with this. So the article discusses what is happening in Indian economy, what is RBI doing, and first and foremost, what is the role of RBI and why RBI is not intervening to the extent it intervened earlier whenever there was a rupee depreciation. Let's understand step by step. First and foremost, whenever you talk about the exchange rate, please remember all these points. From 1993, India shifted to a new concept of exchange rate mechanism, that is managed floating exchange rate mechanism. Managed floating. Under managed floating exchange rate, what would happen? Most of the times, the market forces of supply and demand for the currencies will determine the exchange rate. But whenever there is a too much of volatility in the market, the Reserve Bank of India will intervene and basically control the, right, let's say the depreciation or appreciation, or else simply remember the term stabilize the exchange rate. And RBI has been doing this. Very often, RBI has been selling more than $30 billion, $40 billion in a quarter in order to stabilize the exchange rate. Now, what are the influence or what are the factors that will influence the exchange rate in India? I said the demand and supply forces in the market will determine most of the times what is the exchange rate. In addition to that, I also said RBI will play an important role or a significant role every now and then whenever there is a volatility to stabilize the exchange rate. What has been happening in the context of demand and supply of the currencies in the domestic market? What are the contributing factors to the rupee depreciation? Let's understand one by one. The India's exports in recent times have been hit very hard. In simple terms, India's exports to the global market have come down. And this is not difficult to understand. The government of USA has imposed a tariff. Initially, the government of USA imposed a 25% tariff, followed by another 25% secondary sanctions or secondary tariffs, taking the total amount of tariffs on many of the India's exports. Underline the term many of the India's exports. It is not that all the India's exports attract tariff. A large chunk of India's exports, especially merchandise, are attracting the 50% tariff. As a result of these particular tariffs, India's exports to the USA market have taken a hit. India's exports to the overall global market also have taken a hit. For example, I'm pretty sure you have come across this particular data point multiple times by now. For the month of October, India's exports went down 8% to USA, 12% overall exports took hit, trade deficit widened. So as a result of this, inflow of the dollars actually went down. And simultaneously on the other side, the imports increased into the Indian market. Imports in the form of gold, in the form of silver, in the form of fertilizers. So on one side, imports have increased, which means there will be very high demand for the dollars because we need to pay in terms of dollars. So we will supply rupees and demand dollars. So on one side, supply of rupee has increased, and on the other hand, right, inflow of the dollars has decreased. Are these the only two factors? Absolutely no. There is one more very important factor here: foreign portfolio investors. FPI, foreign portfolio investors. The foreign portfolio investors were also referred to as fly-by-night money, or else please remember, this kind of a money is also referred to as hot money, HOT, hot money. Reason being, this kind of money will keep on flowing from one market to another market, and it will keep on jumping in a very short duration itself, hot money. So the FPI investments into the domestic market, rather than having a net inflow means the dollar coming in, dollar going out, the overall inflow is greater than the overall outflow. So rather than having net inflow in the recent times, there is a very high amount of outflow of the FPIs from the domestic market. So because of the overall outflow, which is more than 1.5 lakh crore rupees in this particular financial or in this particular calendar year itself, that has contributed to more outflow of dollars. So put together all of these particular factors, you will realize what has been happening in the domestic market. There is too much of supply of rupees, there is a very high demand of dollar. So everybody is okay as to why rupee is depreciating. Is everybody okay? Please do let me know in the chat section. This is the reason why rupee is depreciating, and the depreciation is very fast because of the lesser intervention. I repeat, lesser intervention of RBI. Because listen to me carefully now. If there is too much of supply of rupee in the forex market and very high demand for dollars, RBI can intervene, supply dollars from its forex reserves, purchase the rupees, thereby stabilizing the exchange rate. Now, how much is the supply of dollars? How much dollars have been sold by the Reserve Bank of India? That amount of dollars sold is much lower compared to the recent time periods. For example, when you look at the volatility of rupee, couple of years ago, in a quarter, RBI used to sell $30 billion, $35 billion in order to stabilize the rupee value. But according to the recent data, RBI has hardly sold around $10 billion. I repeat, around $10 billion in the recent times in order to stabilize rupee. Now, some of you will be thinking, sir, why is RBI doing this? It is creating a problem for me. I, being a UPSC aspirant, in addition to all the other concepts, now I'll have to remember even this concept because RBI is not working correctly. Listen to the argument of Reserve Bank of India. Listen to this very carefully. The Reserve Bank of India simply says, look at what has been done across the globe regarding India's exports. Take for example, USA tariff. Once the government of USA announces the tariff or has announced the tariff, automatically India's exports, when they land in the USA market, will become costly. Simple, it will become costly. How do I reduce the cost of this? I can't ask the USA government to withdraw the tariff. Negotiations are happening, but you never know what USA government will do right now. But apart from that, what can be done within the domestic market? One is essentially allow the rupee to depreciate. Allow the rupee to depreciate. And I hope you understand this. This is the strategy used by RBI. And why is RBI using this? In addition to India's exports coming down, there is one more very important indicator. Please remember this. Purchasing Managers Index, PMI. I repeat, Purchasing Managers Index, PMI. PMI is published by S&P Global. In case of India, the PMI is published by S&P Global. And what is the use of the PMI? Please remember this. We publish IIP, Index of Industrial Production. We publish the ICI, Index of 8 core industries. But in addition to this, there is one more index that is published every month, Purchasing Managers Index. And according to the latest Purchasing Managers Index for the month of November, the Purchasing Managers Index has actually come down. The number that is given is 56. For October, the PMI was 59. For November, it is 56. But what is the meaning of it? Whenever the PMI is more than 50, it generally indicates expansion in manufacturing, expansion in production. So it was 59 for the month of October, and for the month of November, it has come down to 56. Means what? Compared to previous month, now the production has actually come down. It has actually gone down. Right? So that is basically the reason why Reserve Bank of India now is considering this particular factor, that let's allow the rupee to depreciate. Let's allow the rupee to depreciate. When the rupee depreciates, automatically India's export competitiveness will increase. Is everybody okay? When we allow the rupee to depreciate, India's export competitiveness will increase. This is the reason why RBI is allowing the rupee to depreciate despite crossing the level of 90. But let me give you one more argument here. On one side, RBI is saying, let the rupee depreciate, let it reach the natural level according to the supply and demand forces in the market. And this is going to have an impact that is basically improve the export competitiveness. But I don't know how many of you remember this. Couple of months ago, the Chief Economic Advisor for the Government of India criticized the companies in India and stated that the companies should focus on improving the export competitiveness by working on their factors. That is, use better technology, use, let's say better labor, use cheaper raw material, find out a better way to produce goods and services so that your products will be competitive in the international market irrespective of what is the exchange rate. All of you are able to understand? Do not be over dependent on the depreciation of the rupee. Because today, the rupee will depreciate, fall to 90, and let's say fall to 91, 92 or 93. What if rupee will appreciate after 4 months, after 8 months, after 2 years? Whatever benefit you have received until then, because rupee appreciates, those benefits will be eradicated. So that is the basic argument here. Can this be the only way to promote India's exports? Absolutely no. Right? If rupee depreciates after 1 year or 2 years, whatever benefit you have received of rupee depreciation, you will be losing out. So rather than using rupee depreciation as a tool to promote export competitiveness, we should work on other factors. That is the first very important concern. You need to remember this. Second very important concern is when you are talking about promoting export competitiveness. All of you will agree, in order to manufacture a final good, we require certain inputs, correct? We require certain inputs, raw material, intermediary goods, etc. All these raw materials or the inputs are not available in the domestic market. We import a lot of these. We import a lot of these. So now tell me, if rupee depreciates, don't you think the cost of the imports will increase? And when the cost of the imports will increase, will it not hamper the overall cost of production of a final good? So on one side, you want rupee to depreciate, contribute to export competitiveness, but at the same point of time, you're missing the fact that many of these imports will also become costlier. Right? So these are certain important points you need to remember and understand in the context of this particular debate of RBI allowing the rupee to depreciate even beyond 90 rupees. And basically telling that let the market forces going forward, let the market forces determine what is naturally the value of Indian rupee against the dollar. So these are certain important points. Based on the discussion, I have given a question here. Please solve the question and tell me the answer to the question as soon as possible. Let me know what is the answer to the question. And by the way, student learn 4128. When will Chetan sir take the class? My dear, I'm Shyam Kaggod. Chetan sir will take the class after a couple of days. You will come to know looking at the thumbnail. Okay. What is the answer? Please do let me know. Consider the following statements regarding PMI. It is published in India by S&P Global. Yes, it is published in India by S&P Global. HSBC PMI. The full name is HSBC PMI. It is published by S&P Global. PMI of over 75 means there will be expansion in production. PMI over 75 means it will lead to expansion. No, if PMI is above 50, remember this, if it is above 50, expansion, below 50, contraction, and if it is 50, exactly 50, then there is no change. Production shall remain same. Production shall remain same. Done? Okay. Now, the right answer to this particular question will be option A. Only one or the first statement is correct. Please take up a question for practicing mains answer writing as well. The current rupee fall is not purely a market meltdown, but a possible policy pivot. Elaborate the statement in 250 words, 15 marker. Right? What is happening in the context of Indian rupee? Is it a cyclical, right, change in the exchange rate? Because cyclically every now and then rupee will depreciate, appreciate, etc. But there the role of Reserve Bank of India is generally higher. But now purposely, policy pivot means what? Purposely. And this statement I've taken from the article itself. Purposely, RBI is allowing, right, the rupee to depreciate. So it's a policy pivot. Done? Everybody is okay? Okay. Hence option 2 is correct. My dear, option 2, statement 2. When you say PMI is above 75, does it mean only above 75 means expansion? No. Anything above 50 means expansion. Above 50 means expansion, not just above 75. Okay? Rather than simply saying, sir, right, the wording should have been only. Done. Let me change. PMI only above 75 means expansion. No, statement 2 is incorrect. Okay, let's go forward. Next article. Putin's visit to India. Yesterday, Chetan sir has discussed this in detail. Let me add certain, right, let's say more points associated with the debate that is happening or the current affairs topic. Very recently, India-Russia annual summit was conducted. Russian President Mr. Putin visited India. And during this particular visit, it was expected, I repeat, it was expected that there will be a lot of discussion and agreements signed associated with technology sharing, associated with defense, etc. But the article basically says a lot of discussion that took place, at least in the public domain, which is available in the public domain, a lot of discussion was not focused on the defense. Rather, it was focused on trade relationship between Russia and India. It was focused on trade relation. What kind of agreements were signed and what were discussed in this particular, let's say, the summit. For example, right, have a look at this. India and Russia have signed an agreement or have signed a plan that is 2030 plan. Under the 2030 plan, which was signed last year, by the way, 2024, Under the 2030 plan, the target of having a trade of 100 billion bilateral trade by 2030 has been targeted. Right now, the total amount of trade between both of these countries is around $68 billion. And by 2030, we want to have total trade of 100 billion. In addition to this, there was also discussion and agreement regarding social mobility. That is, from India, the workers will be supplied to Russia, which is facing an issue of, let's say, aging population. There was also one more agreement between Indian companies as well as, that is, government-owned companies, as well as the Russian company in order to set up fertilizer plant in Russia. So if you look at the theme of this particular India-Russia summit, most of the discussions, agreements were focused on the trade itself. Most of them were focused on trade itself. Done? Now listen to me carefully. According to the article, the writer simply says, one of the reasons why there was not a lot of discussion in the context of defense, lot of agreements were not signed in the context of defense, etc., is because of CAATSA. Right? What is CAATSA? Countering American Adversaries Through Sanctions Act. I'll repeat the full form again. CAATSA basically stands for Countering American Adversaries Through Sanctions Act. That is, the government of USA, the powers are there with the president here. The powers basically provide, or let's say the act provides the powers to the president to identify any of the trading partners if they conduct any kind of relation, especially defense relations with countries such as, let's say, North Korea, countries such as Russia, countries such as Iran. If the trading partners are having relations with these particular countries and they are importing defense equipment, then sanctions can be announced using the provisions under CAATSA. And I'm pretty sure all of you know this by now. India has been importing a lot of defense equipments. Best example for this is S-400. S-400. So India has been importing a lot of defense technology, defense equipments, etc. The government of USA has given certain waiver for India to import these. So now the concern was, what if when the president of Russia visited India, now there will be a lot of defense agreements signed. This might irk the government of USA. This might basically create a problem between India and USA. USA might use the provisions of CAATSA to impose certain sanctions on the Indian market. So this is essentially the reason which has been cited in the article as to why India and Russia have not signed so many deals in the context of defense in recent times. And at the same point of time, please understand the delicate position that India presently is facing. India is in a very delicate position. Delicate in the sense, we have been always advising the concept of multilateralism. That is, according to our interest, we will basically keep on aligning with the different countries. Right now, there is a criticism against India that India supports Russia in the fight or the war against Ukraine. India is financing in certain way, not directly but indirectly, the war of Russia with Ukraine. So this kind of criticism is always there. So at this particular juncture, it is basically a good move by the Indian government to ensure that none of these agreements are basically focused on the defense that would have basically catapulted or would have created a much bigger issue between India and USA, where there is a lot of discussion happening already in the context of trade agreement. Right? So these are certain important points which are mentioned in addition to whatever you have heard so far in the previous sessions associated with India-Russia summit. Now, apart from this, I want you people to make a note of these particular points. Suddenly, UPSC can ask you these particular points. That is, have a look at this. Share of Russia in India's exports. This can be a prelims-based statement. Focus on this, because I know most of you will focus on India-Russia defense agreements, defense deals, etc. And because there is so much of discussion associated with, let's say, the trade, UPSC can ask you about trade. Hardly 1% of total India's exports go to Russia, whereas more than 8% of India's imports are coming from Russia. More than 8%. And what are there in case of 8%? The most important one you will have to remember, easier to remember, is petroleum. In addition to petroleum, there is also fertilizers. So these are the two very important components in addition to the defense equipments, which account for more than total 8% of India's imports, which are coming from Russia. Can be asked in the prelims. Be very careful. In addition to this, please make a note of this as well. Trade deficit. India has a trade deficit with Russia. I repeat, India has a trade deficit with Russia. Back in the year 21 and 22, right, the trade deficit was very small, marginal trade deficit. Over a period of time, Russia's imports, Russia's exports into India have increased and will keep on increasing if nothing changes in the global market. On the other hand, India's exports to Russia have changed very marginally by very small percentage. As a result of this, trade deficit is very high. India very recently discussed certain aspects in order to reduce the trade deficit, not just increase the bilateral trade to $100 billion in the concluded India-Russia summit. Everybody is okay with these particular pointers? Can I go forward now? Now, based on this discussion, let's solve an MCQ. Consider the following statements. Please solve the question and do let me know what is the right answer now. Indian exports to Russia account for 1% of its exports. Indian imports from Russia account for around 1% of its imports. India has a trade surplus with Russia. How many of the statements are true? This should not be difficult now. I know some of you will be thinking, sir, such an easy question. My dear, if I had not given you that particular information in the last 5 minutes and then given you this question, then you would have said, sir, very difficult question. So first statement is true, second one is incorrect, third one is incorrect. Right option is option A. Only one of the three statements are correct. Now let's go forward. Next article. Supreme Court warns of penalties for abuse of disabled prisoners. What is the discussion all about? Listen to me very carefully. The government of India has introduced a piece of legislation, Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act of 2016, RPWD 2016. Under this particular RPWD, there is one section, remember this particular section because it was quoted by the Supreme Court in its order. Under the order, section 89 has been mentioned. Now, what is the debate all about? What is the issue all about? Simple. If you look at the prisons in India, whether the person who is incarcerated, whether the person is a person with a disability or, let's say a normal person, there is no differentiation that is done. All the people are incarcerated, all of them are put in the same prison, treated the same way. Now, against this, in the month of June 2025, there was a judgment or an order issued by the Supreme Court of India. The name of the judgment is L. Muruganathan case or L. Muruganathan versus the state of Tamil Nadu. Remember this, L. Muruganathan versus the state of Tamil Nadu. In that particular order, what did the Supreme Court of India direct the state of Tamil Nadu to do? The state of Tamil Nadu was directed as to provide universal accessibility. Universal accessibility, meaning what? Imagine a prison is there. There is a person who has been put in the prison. This person faces certain disability, cannot walk, has a wheelchair, or faces certain other kinds of disabilities. In this particular situation, what if the prison doesn't have the right infrastructure that is required by these particular people? Simple. You require certain ramps, you require certain infrastructure to provide them facilities. For example, wheelchairs should be provided, or for example, ramps should be set up, or barrier-free movement should be allowed for these kind of people. That is a basic necessity that should be provided. But it has been found that in prisons across multiple states, even though we treat both of them the same way, this kind of facility is not provided. So Supreme Court of India looked at this particular case. Again, I'm talking about June 2025 order. And the Supreme Court directed the state. The argument was very simple. Under Article 14 as well as under Article 21, if you look at both of these articles of Indian Constitution, and apply them to the people with disabilities, their rights are being violated in the prisons. Their rights are being violated. So the Supreme Court of India cited these two articles and stated that the universal accessibility facilities should be provided in the state of Tamil Nadu prisons. Medical and therapy support should be provided. You can't treat everybody the same way in a prison if the person is a person with a disability. Right? You should provide them with more facilitation. You should provide them with more visitation facilities. You should provide them with proper medical treatment, etc. And not just this, the Supreme Court ordered an audit of all the jails, all the prisons in the state of Kerala. I'm sorry, state of Tamil Nadu. And the report at the state level, access audits should be conducted once every 6 months. So this was the order issued specifically for the state of Tamil Nadu. And those who are wondering, sir, why state governments are being directed, please remember the prisons in the Constitution of India, that is the division of the powers between the center as well as the state government. Under Schedule 7, prison is an entry in the state list. It is an entry in the state list. It is an entry in the state list. That's the reason the states are directed. States are supposed to provide these kind of facilities, etc. Now, what is the update? What is update? Update is simple. Supreme Court of India in one more petition has expanded the guidelines which were issued for the state of Tamil Nadu to be applicable for the whole of India. Simple. Don't complicate all of this. What were the guidelines issued specifically for the Tamil Nadu state? Now, these will be implemented across the country. And the Supreme Court has ordered all the states and union territories to implement these guidelines. And in a span of 4 months, a report has to be given back or report has to be submitted to the Supreme Court. If there is any violation, then this will be treated as a violence or as a violation, as an offense under Section 89 of the Rights of Persons with Disability Act. And once it is a violation under the Section 89, there will be monetary penalties that would be imposed. For the first violation, 10,000 rupee penalty will be imposed. For the subsequent violation, the amount can increase from 50,000 rupees even to 5 lakh rupees. So this is the order that has been issued by the Supreme Court of India. Now the prisons across India will have to implement the guidelines. It is basically a recognition to the rights of persons with disabilities which has been provided by the Supreme Court across all the prisons throughout India now. Is everybody okay? And those who are wondering, sir, what do I do? How should I remember all of these particular points? Please don't worry. After the session is over, the PPT will be made available to you. Download. Please don't just keep on collecting. Read them, revise them. These are important points. Now, based on this, let's solve an MCQ. Consider the following statements. The prisons are part of entry 4 of Union List. The Ministry of Home Affairs has issued the Prison Manual 16, which is to be adopted as a benchmark by all the states. At first one, everybody will solve the first statement very easily. Second statement, a lot of you will face a difficulty. The prisons are part of the entry 4 of Union List. Incorrect. Part 4, state list. Second statement, Ministry of Home Affairs, MHA. Ministry of Home Affairs has issued the Prison Manual 2016. This statement is correct. The Ministry of Home Affairs has issued a Prison Manual 2016. In fact, the Ministry of Home Affairs says the provisions which have been provided in this manual should be adopted across all the states. These should be used as a benchmark, as a standard for implementing the provisions across all the states. States should make changes to their respective prison manuals. Second statement is correct, by the way. Second statement is correct. Right option for the question will be option B, only 2. That is, only the second statement is correct. Let me go forward. Next article. Assam tribal body is protesting against ST tag for 6 groups. Now, what is the issue all about? Let's understand. There is a minister panel or the panel of ministers in the state of Assam set up by the government of Assam. And very recently, it has submitted a report. it has submitted a report to the government according to which 6 communities have been identified, and these particular communities should be accorded or should be recognized under scheduled tribes. Is everybody okay? Right? This is the news. Let's dissect the news. According to this particular committee or the ministry panel, the 6 communities have been identified. For example, the T tribes, right? Kocha, Rajabongshi, right? Thai Ahom, Matak, etc. 6 communities have been identified, and it has recommended that all these 6 communities should be recognized and notified as scheduled tribes. And against this particular report, there is a tribal body which is protesting and saying, no, this should not be done. What are the issues? What are the points? Let's understand. First and foremost, who will recognize the scheduled tribes in India? Right? Who has the authority? Is it the state government or the union or the parliament for that matter? Remember this particular article, Article 342, which talks about scheduled tribes, basically states that it is the President of India. First and foremost, Parliament will have the power to basically add more groups into scheduled tribes, remove, etc. The Parliament has the power to do all of this. But how is it done? What is the process? Can be asked. Please remember the process. The first step is usually the state government. The state government will prepare a report, will recommend inclusion of certain communities as a part of scheduled tribes list. Once the report is submitted by the state government to the central government, that is basically to the Ministry of Tribal Affairs. To the Ministry of Tribal Affairs. The report is sent to Ministry of Tribal Affairs. Now the Ministry of Tribal Affairs will forward this particular report to the Office of Registrar General of India, ORGI, Office of Registrar General of India. ORGI will use certain parameters which have been recommended. Please remember this. The parameters which have been recommended by Lokur Committee. Lokur Committee, 1965. There are 5 parameters which have been recommended by this committee which shall be used to identify which community forms a part of scheduled tribes in India. For example, the 5 parameters are geological isolation. My recommendation, please memorize all of these. Geological isolation, the shyness to the public, backwardness, distinct culture, and primitive traits. Done. So these are the 5 parameters which are used or which were recommended by the Lokur Committee, and the ORGI uses these parameters to either approve the inclusion of these scheduled tribes or disapprove the inclusion. And after ORGI approval is provided, it will be sent to National Commission on Scheduled Tribes, NCST. And after this, finally it will be sent to Cabinet. Is everybody okay with the process here? Do let me know in the chat section. After all of this happens, it will be sent to the Cabinet. Then a bill to amend the list will be introduced in the Parliament, approved, sent to the President. Once the assent is given, these communities are part of the scheduled tribes. So this is basically the process, and the article number associated with the scheduled tribes is 342. Memorize all of them. Now, what is the argument put forward by the tribal body here? What is their argument? Their argument is, without conducting proper studies, without conducting the sociological studies, this recommendation has been provided by the group of ministers. And if this is adopted, the center will adopt, or let's say basically introduce a bill, President will give the assent to the bill, then these communities which have been identified now, 6 communities, these are economically strong communities. And if these will start getting the benefit of being recognized as the scheduled tribes, the existing scheduled tribes from the state of Assam, which are very, very small communities, they will feel the pressure or they will not be able to get the benefits. This is the argument which has been put forward by the Assam tribal body to protest inclusion of the 6 communities as a part of scheduled tribes. This is the discussion. Please make a note of this. All the points are important. Now, let's solve an MCQ. Consider the following statements. The power to make the final change, that is add or remove, to the scheduled tribes list lies with the respective state government. The traits used to identify the scheduled tribes has been provided in the Constitution of India. In the Constitution of India. No, it is not mentioned in the Constitution of India. Please remember. Right, the power to either add or remove the communities from the scheduled tribes is with the parliament. Final power is with the parliament, not with the state government. So right option for the question will be option D, none of the above. Some of you are saying option B is correct. That is, the second statement is correct. My dear, the Constitution of India doesn't have the provision which provides the features of recognizing a scheduled tribes. No. Let's go forward. One more social issues article. NGO in Rajasthan targets 38 districts to end child marriage. Now, in the context of Rajasthan, yes, it is important. And is it the only state implementing such reforms? No. Even some of the southern states, such as Telangana, they are also implementing reforms to control the menace of child marriage. Now, what are the important points? According to National Family Health Survey, NFHS, according to National Family Health Survey 5, NFHS 5, it states that in India, 23.3% of the women aged between 20 and 24 were married off. 23.3%. Almost, again, I'm just rounding off the number, almost a fourth of the women aged 20 to 24 were married off even they became older than 18 years, before they turned 18 years of age. So this is the data point. Please memorize this particular data point. Now, in the state of Rajasthan, there is an entity, a social worker organization. The Society Just Rights for Children, JRC, Just Rights for Children, has identified 38 districts which have very high prevalence of the child marriages. And they want to adopt a methodology where the whole society will participate. Society in the sense, the influencers, social influencers, the local leaders, the people, all the people will participate, all the stakeholders, the whole society will participate to curb the menace of child marriage. Now, this is happening at the state level. But if UPSC will ask you a question, please mention the central government initiative. I'll repeat, please mention the central government initiative. Very recently, that is on 4th of December, the central government announced a 100-day campaign. Right? Not 100, I was about to say 100, but anyways, 100 days campaign. The union government, that is Ministry of Women and Child Development, has announced a 100 days campaign. Already last year in the month of November, an initiative was launched by the government. That is a one-year program where they want to eradicate or reduce the child marriages in India. And this year, the government of India has announced a 100-day campaign. And this 100-day campaign will be implemented in 3 phases. I'm using the term 3 phases. They are using the term 3 spells. Spell 1, spell 2, and spell 3. And this will not be difficult for the cricket lovers. Spell, it is very easy for you to understand. Spell 1, 2, and 3. The spell 1 will be implemented from 27th November to 31st December 2025. And spell 2 will be implemented till 31st January 2026. And the spell 3 will be implemented from 1st February to 8th March 2026. That is totally 100 days campaign. And what has the government of India, that is the Ministry of Child Welfare and Development, has proposed under this is same argument. It's not just the duty of the government, all the stakeholders, I repeat, all the stakeholders. In fact, the ministry has stated that other ministries such as Ministry of Education and other ministries also will help in the implementation of this 100-day campaign, wherein first stage, the schools or the children will be targeted and they'll be provided with information. Right? Information will be provided. They will be made to understand what is the problem with the idea of a child marriage, promoting child marriage. In addition to that, in the second stage, right? Debates, essay competition, pledge ceremonies will be conducted. And in the third phase, right, the local level leaders at the Gram Panchayat, right, the municipal wards, etc., they will be asked to pass resolutions, right, basically declaring that their regions are child marriage free. And the government of India simply says by 2030, remember all these, by 2030, India wants to eradicate the menace of child marriage. And 2030 is also the year under the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, SDG. Under SDG 5.3, please remember this as well. Under SDG 5.3, I've given all the sub goals. I repeat, all the sub goals which have been provided under the goal number 5 of SDG. And by the way, let me know what is the answer to this particular question. How many goals as well as the sub goals are present under United Nations Sustainable Development Goals? I'm talking about only one here, SDG 5, and within that 5.3, which aims to eradicate, right, that is forced child marriages shall be eradicated by 2030. That is the same target which has been chosen by the government of India. So let me know what is the right answer, and those who are watching the recorded session, do let me know the answer in the comment section of the video. So these are certain important points. At the state level, reforms are being implemented. At the central government level as well, reforms are being implemented. Right? Anushka Singh says the sub goal numbers are 139. My dear, please check. Please check. 17 goals, you're absolutely right. But how many, right, sub goals or sub targets are set up? Please check, right? I don't want to tell the answer because you will have to try it. Anyways, let's go forward. Next article. In the ongoing saga of Indigo, the government of India has made certain announcement, right? But I believe that this announcement has been made a bit late. There was a delay on the part of the government. What is the announcement? The government of India now has announced capping of airfares. The government of India now has announced capping of airfares. They have announced a cap on airfares. Should you remember the cap which has been announced for up to 100 kilometers, beyond 100 kilometers? Absolutely no. Don't worry about all of that. But under what powers, under what, right, let's say regulations, is the union government allowed to announce the cap? Please remember this. There is aircraft rules. Aircraft rules 1937. Under aircraft rules 1937, specifically the rule number 135 sub-rule 4. Rule number 135 sub-rule 4. So the government of India generally uses this particular rule to impose a cap on the ticket fares which are offered by the companies. Now, are there any past examples where you can basically connect these particular point to? Yes, during the pandemic. I repeat, during the pandemic, it was again seen that the aircraft carriers or the civil aviation companies started increasing the tariffs, started increasing the charges. Government of India had used the same rule to impose a cap on the, right, the ticket prices. So multiple times this particular rule has been used by the government. But why am I saying that there was a delay? This should have been done much sooner. Please understand, here itself you can understand the problem that is associated with the idea of having, right, let's say oligopoly. Please remember the term oligopoly. What is the concept of an oligopoly? Right? There is a concept of monopoly. Monopoly means what? Right? There is only one supplier. In civil aviation market, we do not have monopoly. Yes, one company has major market share. That is the Indigo company. Right? But Indigo is not the only service provider. The problem with having very few companies, and you can extend the same argument to other sectors as well. That is, for example, the telecom sector. For example, the telecom sector. The problem with having very few companies or the service provider is that one or the other company will have major market share. And if that particular company which has a very high market share, if that company collapses, if that company's activities are disrupted, there will be huge spillover effect. There will be a disruption in the complete market there. there will be a complete disruption. And that is exactly what you're saying in the context of civil aviation market today. The company which had the major market share has cancelled more than thousands of the flights. More than thousands of the flights. And because that company has cancelled more than thousands of the flights, automatically the other players in the market who have certain market share but not as big as the existing, that the company which has cancelled the flights, they will try to basically gauge the system now, and they know demand will be suddenly rising up, and they'll basically say we are private sector companies, we are working for profit. They know the demand will increase, they will increase the ticket prices. They will increase the ticket prices. I'm pretty sure you have come across the, right, let's say the articles or the news discussions, etc., where people have paid more than a lakh rupees, more than lakh rupees for a travel where the normal ticket price could have been around 15 or 16,000 rupees. So this is exactly the problem whenever you have very few number of companies. Second issue is, now the government of India has basically relaxed the FDTL regulations. What is FDTL? Right? FDTL stands for Flight Duty Time Limitation. Flight Duty Time Limitation. Under FDTL regulations, basically the DGCA enforces certain restriction on how much work will be put on, how many hours of work will be put on the, let's say, pilots. There are different regulations. Don't remember all the regulations, not relevant. But essentially it will restrict how much work will be allocated on this particular workforce. And because the company has not planned correctly, company has not hired correctly, the company has tried to cut the cost and try to maximize the productivity with the same amount of labor, this is a natural outcome. So you should have held the company at a, right, let's say you should have held it at a much higher level of accountability. Right now, many of the experts are arguing the amount of accountability that has been imposed on Indigo company doesn't inspire confidence. That is the second issue. And the third issue is, if you're going to relax FDTL, does it not mean the pilots now will have to work more number of hours? You said it is not safer. Now you have relaxed the same, right, let's say guideline. You are allowing the pilots to fly for more number of hours. What if there is an accident because of the stress on the pilots? Who is going to be responsible for that particular outcome? So these are some of the issues that you need to remember in the context of the current affairs that is happening right now in the civil aviation market. Now, just an update here. US team to visit India next week to discuss tariffs on bilateral trade agreement. Simple. India and USA are negotiating a trade agreement. Next week, USA team will visit India and hold negotiations with Indian side. Right? What is the outcome? Will there be any movement further in finalizing the bilateral trade agreement between both of these countries? Let's wait and see. Nothing beyond this. Just a second. Just a second. Okay, so nothing beyond this is useful from the article. Don't worry who is representing Indian side, who is representing from, right, the USA side, etc. Please don't worry about all of it. Okay, let's go forward. Next article, Extreme Heat, Gender Study, GS paper 2 article. Now, what are the important points from the article? Important point is simple. In recent times, there has been lot of issue that has been faced in India, that is specifically from the labor market because of the heat waves. Because of the heat waves. But there is always this particular debate that has been happening. Whenever you talk about the policies that you need to implement, whenever you talk about, let's say, certain changes that the government should do, etc., there should be a separate importance given. There should be an angle provided for women. There should be certain, right, a specialized importance provided for women. Why so? I'll just give you an example. In the context of the budget making in India, in the context of budget making process, from the year 2005 and 6, we have implemented the concept of gender-based budgeting, GBB, gender-based budgeting, wherein we are not just allocating the funds, We are allocating as well as implementing the scheme, as well as we are working on the goals that we have set out under the concept of gender budgeting. So the argument is very simple. Lot of times the policies are formulated, but we miss out on the fact that certain special importance needed to be provided for women in that particular segment. Here is a report which has been published by MS Swaminathan Research Foundation. MS Swaminathan Research Foundation. What is the report simply saying? They have conducted a survey amongst some of these particular places where the heat, that is, the severe heat is experienced. Heat waves are experienced. And what does the article basically say? What does the survey, or what has the survey found out? The women are impacted in much greater way compared to the male population in that particular region. That the women suffer more compared to the male population in that particular region whenever there is a severe heat. It could be psychological impact. It could be, right, the stress on their body. It could be associated with their reproductive, right, let's say activities, etc. So there are a lot of these issues that are faced by the women. Right now, the problem is that the foundation says whenever the women are facing these kind of issues, the healthcare assistance is lagging behind. They are not going to the, right, let's say the healthcare service providers. They are not approaching the healthcare service providers. So there is a need to formulate a policy. I repeat, there is a need to formulate a policy in order to address this particular problem which is faced by the women in the regions where there is a severe heat wave. Right? So in a nutshell, this is what the study basically says. Done? And finally, the last article for today, Mr. Amit Shah says circular economy will raise dairy farmers' income in 5 years. What is this idea of a circular economy? I'm pretty sure all of you have heard of it. If not, basic idea is simple. As against the concept of a linear economy. Linear economy means what? You use the resources, you produce something, use the resources, you produce and you discard. You dispose of or you discard. This is called as a linear economy. Linear economy. As against this, there is a proposal of circular economy. Even Niti Aayog promotes the concept of a circular economy. Now, what is an example of a circular economy in the dairy sector? And why Mr. Amit Shah, Minister for Cooperation, is promoting the circular economy in the dairy sector, how it will contribute to the farmer's economy? Let me give you a very simple example. Let's say farmer has certain livestock, right? Let's say they have certain amount of livestock. And when they have livestock, automatically, right, let's say the feed or let's say the livestock, the output of livestock, right, that is a gobar. Now this particular gobar can be used to produce biogas, correct? It can be used to produce even manure. The manure now can be used for cultivation purposes. More production can be attained, right, or more environment friendly production in agriculture can be attained. And once this is possible, energy supply through biogas and the feed after the cultivation is done, the feed can be used to supply fodder for the livestock. So rather than simply discarding the output, we are using the output again as an input in a circular manner. Right? This is called as a right example, or this is basically circular economy in the context of the dairy sector. So that is what is being discussed by the minister here. He says over a period of time, that is in the next 5 years, we are going to promote circular economy in the dairy sector. And in fact, please remember the name of the scheme. There is already a scheme which is being implemented, Go Bardhan scheme. Remember the name of the scheme? Go Bardhan scheme. Right, the Go Bardhan scheme is associated with this only, that is usage of, right, the gobar from the livestock. So argument is the circular economy will be promoted rather than simply discarding the waste. Now it can be used in the circular economy, which will contribute to the revenue potential of the farmers. And how much is the potential? The potential will be, right, realized once we start implementing. This will be in addition to the normal amount of income generated by the farmers. right? So this is right, let's say the article associated with the circular economy here. So these are the 9 articles, as well as the questions, as well as the concepts associated with the 9 articles. If you have any questions related to whatever I've discussed so far, do let me know. Otherwise, that's the end of the session. If you have liked this particular session, do not forget to hit the like button. If you're yet to join our YouTube channel, kindly do it right now. Anybody has got any kind of a doubt? Done then. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Take care. See you tomorrow sharp at 10 a.m. with another analysis. Have a great day.